Welcome to Fractional. I'm your host, Chris Capone. We talk about all things business development and lifestyle and just how to keep the dream alive. I have two very exceptional men with me here today. Super stoked that you guys are here. Thank you very much for coming. We have Erik Hemingway and Levi Hemingway, and they own and run a business called Nomad Capital, and they have built a very cool business and infrastructure on building passive income. And so why don't we start with you guys, just introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about Nomad Capital.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Chris. Super excited to be here. So we are a father-son duo. We do Nomad Capital, which is syndication in real estate. So we focus in self-storage and specifically self-storage conversions in the Southeast. So we have a background. My dad has a background in general contracting. I've been in the field working construction for about 10 years now as well. And so we raise capital from investors, passive investors, put the deal together, build it out. We in-house manage as well. So we do everything from start to finish and converting big, old, ugly buildings in the Southeast, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, nothing in Tennessee and Georgia. And so, yeah, we started Nomad Capital about a year and a half ago, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, just trying to build out our team and just scale that business and learn it. And, we've been doing real estate and construction for a few years now, but really building out Nomad Capital and what it can be. So,
Very cool. Very cool. Erik?
Yeah. Super excited to be here. Thanks, Chris. This is exciting. And I guess this is the first episode?
This is.
All right.
This is the
Good
first
for you,
episode.
man.
Yep.
Big step. Yeah.
Yep.
Like Levi said, father-son team, love what we do. We're super passionate about real estate and done a lot of different things over the years. I've done residential construction, quite a bit of that, building spec houses, customs, and some commercial, and they just got more and more into commercial over the years. And kind of 2016, we decided to focus solely on self-storage or primarily on self-storage. So love that asset class, and we love conversions because it feels like a perfect blend of, our skill set as construction guys and asset class of self-storage, which we love, which is, all about building passive income. So, that's how we kind of the vein we're in right now. So we love it. We're super excited.
Yeah, it's so cool. And the way that we got connected was so funny. And, just through like a serendipitous chain of events, I know a guy who knows a guy, and you guys just happen to be looking for someone to, work with you guys to help build the business. We met once, and I think we were all kind of like, I think this is going to be a pretty good fit.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Yeah, really excited to be a part of it. So we've talked about, how the asset class of self-storage and how it has turned out to be, a really good space to be in for many different reasons. So did you guys have that plan? Like, we know that self-storage is the right place to be, the best place to be, or how did you guys kind of find yourself going from residential, commercial, and then really into the self-storage?
So it goes back to, we're from Arizona originally. I grew up in Phoenix, and then we lived in Prescott, Arizona, which is up in the mountains for 14 years. That's where we started our family. Mm-hmm. Levi was born there. And then 2001, I went on my own, basically, left my W-2, got my contractor's license, was building specs and customs for a few years, and then 2006, I built my first storage in Arizona, and we still own it today. And it was just kind of a thing like, how do I? It comes down to, I guess, laziness, right? It was like, how can I make money and not work as much?
I love it. Hey, that's how some of the best ideas come about.
Right. So it was actually my brother-in-law, James. He was like, you should look into self-storage. I'm like, I don't know anything about self-storage. Yeah. But I would drive by this piece of property every day on my way, from where we lived. And it was on the highway. It was residential property. It was like an old farm. And I said, you know what? That probably would be good for storage. And long story short, bought the property, took a long time, and built a self-storage. And then this was 06, we finished it. And then by, 07, 08, things started falling apart in the economy and all that. Right. And so, that's how we got into self-storage, kind of just a fluke, really. Yeah. And that's why we kind of went back to it in 2016. We thought by then the Arizona storage was doing great, and we said we need to do more of these. So
That's so cool.
Well, when we moved back to Wilmington, when we moved to Wilmington, we were renovating houses downtown, building spec homes, and it was sort of we were doing everything. We basically restarted here, so we were the first flip that we did. I mean, we dug the footings, we poured the concrete, we laid the block, we framed it. I mean, we put trim. We set the cabinets, we did everything for this house, and as we were kind of building this house out, it was just this conversation of like, okay, we're putting all this work into this house. It's going to be great. When we sell it, we're going to make some money,
Right.
But then we got to go do it again. Right. And we got to start over again. And then we got to buy another house. We got to do all this over again. And then we'll sell it and we'll make money. And then we got to do it again. And as we're framing, middle of summer, we're thinking, man, what else can we do that we can, if we're going to put this much effort into a project or, anything, wouldn't it be nice if it was just started paying us every month, maybe not what we would make on a sale, but, even if it was a fraction of that, let's multiply that times 3 or 4x, and like you said, Arizona, the Kachina mini storage was finally actually doing really well. Mm-hmm. And it was like, hey, let's get back into storage and let's put a lot of that effort into a project that once it's finished, it actually pays us back and we don't have to go and sell it and do it all over again. So that was really the during Church Street, the renovation, we were like, all right, let's sort of do these two things side by side. Let's build out spec homes, for some influx of cash, and then let's just dump it all into something that is, sustaining residual income, and that's replicable on that end. So that was really the conversation there.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Right.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
You can only sweat through so many shirts in the summer before you're like, okay, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and your the fact that you guys have done every part of building, from the ground up, I think that there's a lot of people out there that they look at you, they might be listening, they're like, well, I just want to, I want to get into self-storage and I want to do that. But what people don't realize is the sweat of 15, 20 years from the ground up,
right.
Learning the business and how to do that, I think has probably been a really important part of you guys being successful with what you do.
I think so. Yeah. It's hard days, but
exactly.
You're trying to build something better, right?
Yeah.
So
no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we will come back. You guys have a story about how you got from Arizona to Wilmington, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We're going to come back because it's a wild story about how you guys took the family and lived in Europe for a while, and we'll get to that. But what I want to know is, so tell us about. So you started with one self-storage unit in 2006 in Arizona, mm-hmm. and it's now 2023. I think it's May, almost June 2023. Tell us about your portfolio. And kind of, what the longer-term vision and the longer-term plan is for you guys.
Sure. So as we've talked, like the storage in Arizona was finally doing well. Through the recession, we were able to hang on to it, and it just kind of broke even, treading water, basically. Right. And then by 2014, 15, it started doing well. By 2016, it was doing, it was throwing off some great cash flow, and we thought, okay, we need to do more of this. So it was about the same time that we started looking at syndication, which is just a fancy word for partnerships, basically,
right.
Where we would be the sponsors and we would put together the deal, find the investors, find the property and all that, do all the heavy lifting. But we didn't want to jump into that because we'd seen other syndication groups kind of get stuck in this trap where a lot of the motivation is for the fees that come along with it, acquisitions fees, management fees, and we thought, we don't really want to, have to do the next deal just to keep, just to survive on fees.
Yep.
And so we kind of made a conscious decision about that time, like, let's build a portfolio of properties that we don't have investors on, that are ours, basically our family, trust or whatever,
right.
that we can build, call that a base that we can build off of. So we're not stuck in this trap where we have to do mediocre deals just for the fees, right?
Right.
So that was 2016, and it was really a shoestring. I leveraged my home equity loan. found an SBA loan through Live Oak Bank, local bank. That was a whole crazy story, but did that storage and then refinanced it, took the equity out of that, bought another storage in Wilmington. So we have 2 in Wilmington.
Okay.
Then we bought, it was just really scrappy, right? One deal after the next. And by about 2020, we had sold some other properties, 1031'd into a hospitality property and a storage in Greensboro. And then we felt like, all right, once we get to this certain threshold, then we feel like we could syndicate.
Well, because on top of that, we wanted to build out the right team to syndicate, right? Like we wanted to actually staff up. We wanted to be, we wanted to have enough people to where when we opened the doors and said, all right, we're going to do this, we actually had the right people in place instead of, hey, we're trying to just make this up as we go. I mean, that's typically what we do is make it up as we go. But
learn as you go. I mean,
right.
that's the best way sometimes.
Yeah. But we were like, hey, let's be able to actually like get the staff on that we need to actually scale this business when we take it, when we start syndicating before we start at Nomad Capital. So.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah.
So you guys talk a lot about cash flow, leverage, refinancing, working with banks. I'm sure they taught you that when you got your General Contractors license,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. No, so I got into construction as on a lark, basically.
Yeah.
We had 2 kids and we had no money at all in Arizona. So we were, we started at the bottom, digging ditches, sweeping out jobs, worked my way up to superintendent, and then eventually got my contractor's license.
Yep.
In hindsight, no background in finance,
Yeah.
and it was really just learn as you go, 100%, and you have to get good at a certain thing, right? So you once you realize all the voids and your thinking, it was a matter of, all right, I guess I need to dive deep into accounting and figure out how to read a balance sheet, how to read a P&L, so. It definitely didn't happen overnight, and just one piece added to the next, for sure.
Well, I would say back like in 2016 when we first were starting, like when we said, all right, let's build our own portfolio before we start syndicating, we started going to this conference, Best Ever Real Estate Conference, and it was like all about syndication. A lot of multifamily syndicators there, a lot of self-storage guys, office, whatever it is. And, that learning was like we'd go and then we'd just digest it all. And we're like, wait, what are they talking about? Are they, okay.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, this makes sense. They're talking about SEC stuff and we have no idea, but we're just, digesting it. And then, every time we go, we'd hear about 3 more podcasts and we're devouring those episodes and just learning. I mean, we were, I'd say we learned, I mean, we still are, but I mean, we just filled anything we could get our hands on for 3 or 4 years, because we were just trying to understand this business and it was funny because the more we're learning, it's like, oh, okay, hey, actually, I know that, like, this guy was talking about it over here, or this was talking about this podcast, and so it was a lot of.
I compare it to like you really learning another language, right?
Yeah.
If you're learning Spanish or whatever, you have to learn about cap rates and leverage and all of the stuff that goes along with it, and Class C shares and Class B shares, and what does that mean? And what's a waterfall? What's hurdles and all these different things? And it's just once you start learning it, then it's like you can speak the language and what they're talking about.
Yeah. No, I mean, and when I was thinking about this before, and really, you guys are general contractors by trade, and you've turned into capital raisers, investment fund managers, just like through experience, right? You had no formal education. And I think a lot of, what I really like about you guys is the humility and just, you're real guys. And I think that people sometimes are afraid to ask questions, and they're afraid to be, to be the guy that doesn't know what they're talking about. But you guys are like, whatever, let's go figure this shit out. We've got to learn how to do this, and then it seems like you guys you've built a really good team of people around you to support that growth.
Yeah,
which is really cool. So tell me about, so we've got, so right now we have how many other assets, or what other type of stuff do you guys have in the portfolio? And then what's the next step? Because you're at a spot now. You syndicated a few deals.
Yep.
So what's the next step?
So to answer your first question, the portfolio now is 4 storages that we own on our own. We've syndicated 6 storage projects. Just closed on one last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And
Yeah.
got one more in the pipeline, and going to look at another property tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So
Awesome.
we'll talk about that later.
Cool.
But, so we've got that, and we also got into, also kind of as a fluke, got into hospitality. So we got into a 5-room boutique motel in Curie Beach that we converted all during 2020 into a 9-room boutique motel, and it's called the Lighthouse. It's on the beach, and then that led to another one, and led to another one. So that's kind of a separate arm, but that's probably part of the portfolio as well. We've got about 115 doors on the Carolina Curie Beach area. Across those, and then the self-storage. So those are kind of the 2 basic, the 2 main categories. And sorry, what was the second
And
question?
then so we've
where are we going?
Yeah, so what's the next step? Like, are you guys gonna keep using the syndication model to grow, or organic growth, or what's the vision for for longer term?
I think we'll keep going with the syndication. We like it a lot. So we've just done one-off deals, right? So we have its own standalone entity. We raise the capital for that. We've got some partners that help us raise capital.
Yep.
And then we close on that deal, and all these investors are in on that deal. And what we've seen a lot of other syndication groups do is, it's always this ebb and flow of deals to capital that you've raised, and where does that meet? We do continue to find deals that we can't do just because we're limited on how much cash we have and capital we've raised.
Yep.
So I think what we've kind of decided is later this year we'd like to launch our a fund to be able to build, to launch kind of the next chapter.
Awesome.
So we're going to call it El Fundo.
El Fundo.
Because everybody else calls it
El Fundo.
Fund One, but we thought, well, that's kind of boring. Let's go El Fundo.
We don't do anything. We try to. We don't do anything that other people do. So
Yeah.
it's like,
I dig
El
it.
Fundo, baby.
El Fundo.
So
awesome.
we're hoping to raise about $25 million.
Okay.
That will leverage against the next $75 million worth of assets or so far. So far we've raised about just under $10 million on against about $80 million worth of real
Unbelievable.
estate. So
That's so cool.
It's crazy numbers, right?
I know.
I look
It's
at it on
it's
paper.
funny. It's just you're coming. Yeah, we're gonna do 25 million. We're
I'm
gonna
like,
leverage that to 75.
Let's just say it. Let's just say 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a number.
Yeah,
Well,
and you
it's
guys have
been-
done 10 already.
I
So I
know.
mean, why not?
I
Right?
mean, it's been like, we talk about this all the time, and it's like, you're just doing the next thing that's in front of you, right? Like,
Yep.
I think that's one of the biggest things that we've just seen over the last couple of years is like, you take us 5 years ago and said, hey, you guys are going to be rolling out a $25 million fund. It would have been like, okay, that's great,
Yeah.
But it's and we didn't just go from here to here, It's been every step is just doing the next thing. It's like, hey, let's put this deal under contract. Each of the capital raises have been a little bit more. Then we had 2 deals going at once. We were stressing, doing, working, grinding, and then it's like, hey, let's do this other one. Let's do. It's always been just doing the next thing that's right in front of us, and and it's cool to look back and see like, hey, here's where we are now. And it's been every single step along the way has gotten us to here.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
So yeah, we're looking at El Fundo, and then as a company as a whole, we're looking at different asset classes as well. We always come back to self-storage because it's what we know, and it's one of the strongest asset classes out there in commercial real estate.
Right.
But we have talked about possibly syndicating hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of groups out there doing that, and it's another great asset class. It's a little more volatile, but it's something that we've talked about. And then, of course, just exploring industrial or, not that we're done with self-storage, but just saying, hey, let's look ahead on our next, 3 to 5 years. How many deals are going to be out there? Can we scale the way we want to scale? Are we going to have to pivot into another asset class or
Yep.
two? And so we're just kind of assessing that right now. But other than that, no plans to do anything other than self-storage.
That's so cool.
So.
No, it's there's a quote that I really like. It's it took me 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
People might listen to this and they're like, I want to be like, but it's to hear the storyline of everything that goes in. People don't see that, and then all of
Right.
a sudden, you get to a point where we're rolling out a $25 million fund.
It's crazy.
And it is.
I love that quote. And
Yeah.
it's so Pops has always said the quote that he has always said since we started was, fear is a muscle that you work out. So like every choice that we make is, there's fear behind it. We're human beings, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, buying your first house, there's fear in that. Like, can we make the mortgage? Is it too expensive? Taxes, whatever it may be. And every decision you make, if you're, flexing that fear muscle, it gets stronger every time. And so, from where we started, the $1 million deal, $1 million price tag was like, oh my gosh, like $1 million.
Yeah, stressing.
Stressing, yeah. And then the more we're sort of flexing that muscle and working it out through exercise and through actually doing these projects and these things, it becomes less and less scary. And it's just, it's that muscle being worked out. So I think that's a perfect analogy. I mean, you've said it for years now, and it's like, you can't go all the way to here without working out. You can't just hop under the bench and put 300 pounds on it. You've got to slowly work up to that, and so
that's
I like
so
that.
cool.
Yeah.
And the fact that you guys are doing this here in Wilmington, Wilmington isn't really known as like, a financial capital or like, like a big commerce place. It's mostly looked at as like a tourist or, tourism and, leisure. But I mean, it's pretty cool to see like we're here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and this is the type of stuff that we're talking about and the type of opportunities that you guys are helping to also build part of the community here and the business community. And I think that's really cool. That's
Awesome.
really cool.
Yeah.
So, tell me about what it's like working with your dad.
No, I'm just kidding.
Turn that off.
I mean, it's got to just be like a very unique experience that a lot of people don't get to do. And you guys, I mean, just spending time with you guys have such a great relationship and just demeanor. And so, it's cool. I'd like to just hear a little bit about what that's like.
I love it. I talk to a lot of people that are like, oh, I can never work with my pops. I can never work with my old man. We have a great relationship. I mean, we really do. He's, it's just great. We get along really well. And so when I finished high school, I was actually a volunteer firefighter, and I was looking at becoming a firefighter.
And that was here in Wilmington.
Here in Wilmington, yeah.
Got it.
And I sort of like, graduated. I got married young, but my wife and I was like, hey, I want to become a firefighter or work with my dad. My dad was really just starting his business here in Wilmington. I mean, getting ready to start construction. So, and just decided that I wanted to work with my dad, and said, hey, I can always go do something like that, but I want to work with my dad. And fast forward almost 10 years later, I had no idea that it would come to this, but it's been incredible. I love it, enjoy it. So
that's awesome.
yeah.
And having your son on the payroll.
My gosh!
Well, you guys are partners. I didn't mean on the payroll.
I've been on the payroll before. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. I think we probably say it to each other every week, like, because there's a lot of stressful parts in this business.
That's
right. There's you can imagine all the different things, loan closings and all this stuff, and there's hard days, and I'm like, I'm so glad we're doing this together. Like I would not want to do this by myself. I've done it by myself for a long time, and I've done it both ways, and I'm like, I'm so glad we have each other to bounce ideas off of. Or Levi's super great with interpersonal relationships. People, he's a people person, and so
Absolutely.
It's like frustrations with somebody in the office or staff or whatever. It's like we can just talk about those kind of things and brainstorm, and it's just a great mix about our personalities. And it's great to get his perspective, and like, hey, I think we need to tell this person this. He's like, well, I think we probably need to handle it this way, and it's like, yeah, you're 100% right. And so I there was nothing I would change about it. It's great.
That's so cool.
It's really an honor.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the family, because you have a big family.
We do,
and you guys have done some really, really cool stuff as a family. So just tell us about the family.
Okay. So, so my wife and I, we got married young as well, and started our family in Prescott, Arizona. So we've got 6 kids altogether.
6 kids, oh my gosh.
5 grandkids. So we're a lot.
Yeah.
When we roll in, it's pretty, we roll in pretty deep.
Yeah, rolling deep, that's for sure. Yeah.
So my oldest daughter is 28, and my youngest son is 12.
Okay. It's a little spread there.
Yeah. So they're spread out, 16 years spread out. And we just always wanted a big family, never had a number on it, just kind of, like everything else in life, just take it as it comes. And these kids just kept showing up. I don't know. So we're super blessed. Obviously, it's fantastic. 2 kids married. My third daughter. She's getting married in this fall.
Congratulations.
And got a daughter in college and 2 at home. So we've
Unbelievable.
Still navigating that. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, Levi, you have how many children now?
I have 3. Just had
3.
my third.
And how old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
27.
That's wild.
So I have a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old.
That's so cool.
So
Man.
yeah, real estate's my side job.
Yeah, that's right.
Self-storage
Yeah.
syndication, that's my side hustle.
Well, you
Thus
know,
the red eye.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, I mean, the name of the podcast is Fractional, right? And the idea is that there's, so many different things that we do in life, and being able to focus on, being able to focus and be present at different times in life. So, I mean, it's funny to hear you say, that's my part-time job.
Yeah.
And that's right. I mean, it sounds like, your priority and what I could tell is family first.
Yeah,
And
family always first.
I think that's so cool. I mean, people, it's so easy to get caught up in the money and the dollars and cents, and it's refreshing to hear that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say, to that, it was a big decision, if you want to segue into that whole thing of how we got from there to here. But,
Yeah.
it was really something that was on my wife and I's
Yeah, let's
heart and mind.
Yeah, let's
Oh,
talk.
yeah.
Let's
Okay.
talk about that. So,
Yeah.
tell us how you got from Arizona to Wilmington?
Okay, so we
took the long way.
Yeah, a very
we took
long
a
way.
long way. No, we were always passionate about travel.
Yeah.
And I remember having conversations when we just had 2 kids, like, are we going to have a big family or are we going to travel? Because it felt like this was the crossroads.
Yeah.
If you have a big family, you can't travel as much and this and that. And we thought, well, why can't we do both? So
Yeah.
our family kept growing. That was part of my motivation to start my own business in 2001 was like, let's see if we can have more free time. Turns
Right.
out construction is not really a career where you just get all kinds of free time.
Right,
But,
exactly.
through a series of events, we had an opportunity to move to Costa Rica in 2007. So I was 36.
Wow.
And we went down there to build. A friend of mine had bought a piece of property down there and was selling lots.
Yep.
And invited me to come down and build. And so we thought, well, maybe this is our way to travel.
Right.
So we went down there, and then '08 happened, and a lot of the folks that we were building houses for, they were second homes for Americans
Got
and
it.
Canadians.
Yep.
So that stopped, and we had a couple commercial buildings that we sold in Prescott, and we had also talked about a sailboat through reading travel books and whatnot. We found
Right.
these folks that, families that lived on boats, and they were like, this is great because your home is with you. You can eat on the boat. That's your mode of travel. It's an inexpensive way to travel, especially with a big family.
Right, right.
So we thought, let's explore that.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so we found a boat in Greece. I flew over there to see if we would fit on it, basically, because we're from Arizona. We don't know anything about sailing.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's
Yeah,
your
we-
sailing experience?
Yeah, we come from
we
the
had a little-
desert.
The desert, yeah.
We had a little 24-foot day sailor that we had sailed around on a lake, and
Yeah.
that was it.
Right.
And
Same thing.
so, yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of similar. So
Yeah, it's similar.
we ended up buying the boat in Greece and moved over there with 5 kids.
Oh, my gosh.
And 22 bags and moved onto this boat. And we thought, so originally the plan was, all right, we're going to spend 1 year on the boat. We're going to sail to a few Greek islands
Right.
and then sell the boat.
Yep.
And kind of blew up in our face. We ended up on the boat for 3.5 years and sailed to 24 countries, ended up going to Israel for a while, had a baby in Israel.
So your 6th child.
My 6th child, was born in
Unbelievable.
Israel and Jerusalem. And then,
Well, Mom got pregnant at
Well,
when
we were in Turkey.
like 5 months on the boat.
yeah.
Like 4 or
Yeah.
5 months on the boat.
Close quarters.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was like, whoa, all right. So
Yeah.
I told my wife, I said, hey, if you want to, Rachel, if you want to go back to the U.S. to have the baby,
Right.
I totally get it.
Yep.
The party's over. And she's like, well, let's figure it out. People have babies all over the world. Let's find a midwife and let's figure it out. So we
Yeah.
found a midwife in Israel and contacted her with Skype. And then she was like, yeah, you can sail over here by, the time you're 30 weeks. I'm comfortable with that. You already know the drill. It's your 6th one.
Right,
So,
right.
so we did. So we ended up sailing there, sailed from Turkey to Cyprus to Israel. No plans to cross the Atlantic or anything.
Right.
We said, well, let's start sailing west, and as we go to cross the Mediterranean, we'll decide if we want to tackle the
It'll at least be cheaper flights if we're just going closer to the U.S.
Yeah.
The closer we get to
the
the
closer
US,
we
the
get,
cheaper.
the cheaper we get. Every couple miles it goes down
Yeah.
$20. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Chris, we were so clueless. We didn't even know. I didn't even know the
Oh
boat
my
we
God.
bought was able to cross oceans. Right?
You
We were in a
guys.
marina. We're in a marina in Turkey, and this friend of mine, comes by, and he's like, "So you guys crossing this year?" And we're like, "Crossing what?" And he's like, "The Atlantic." Like most people are circumnavigating, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Crossing the Atlantic." I'm like, "With this boat?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, yeah. We see, we see boats smaller than that out there."
Oh my
And then
gosh.
my wife was in the galley, kitchen, and she
Right.
was cooking dinner, and she was like, "Oh my God, Neil, what have you just put in my husband's head?" I'm like, I came down, I'm like, "Rach, guess what?" She's like, "Don't even say it." So that was planted the seed, and then as we sailed west, it was like, I think we can do it.
Yeah.
And so we got life raft and satellite phone and got kind of tooled up to do it. And yeah, ended up sailing down the west coast of Africa, Senegal, Gambia,
Oh my gosh.
at Cape Verde Islands, and then crossed over to Dominica in the Caribbean. Started making our way back to the U.S.
So you kind of sail. So you head south and then kind of come across the equator.
Yeah,
Is
basically, we were 17 degrees north of the equator, and
Okay.
just basically straight west. So we came out of Gibraltar,
Yeah.
out of the Mediterranean, and went down to Morocco, and then the Canary Islands,
Unbelievable.
and then down to Senegal and Gambia, which most folks don't sail down there, but it was pretty incredible.
Did you ever have any encounters with like pirates or anything of that nature?
So
or-
this time, this was 2012. A lot of the pirate stuff was happening over in the Gulf of Aden.
Okay.
And Somalian pirates and stuff, and that was real. I mean,
Yeah, that's
we talked to a lot
crazy.
of other sailors that were dealing with that on circumnavigating. We had a couple.
There was a little bit of off the coast of Morocco. There was some people that were kind of being boarded, or not really boarded, but there was like, it wasn't really like full blown pirates, but these guys were just fishermen that were trying to, pestering people.
Right,
So I mean,
right.
they didn't pester us, but it was like we'd heard of other people that kind of
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
You know.
I mean, I think obviously anything can happen. You're out in the middle of nowhere, and even when
Yeah.
you're sailing down Morocco, you're 60, 80 miles offshore. You don't see land. You're
Right.
out in the ocean, right? And I do remember one time. Remember we had those two boats. We could
Yes.
see them on the horizon. All of a sudden, zoom, they're coming towards us. And as they came
gosh.
closer, they like divided up and came around us. And we're like, we have a spear gun.
Yeah.
That's all we had. And we're
Yeah.
so I think, in international travel in general, that's one of the beauties of traveling as a family, like with kids. Like, no, I mean, nobody wants to mess with a family with kids, right?
Okay,
I mean, it's
yeah.
just so. And they pulled up next to our boat, and they had like a few little scraggly fish in their boat, and they were looking for food. I
Right.
mean, we didn't speak their language, but they were just asking for food or cigarettes or whatever. And we're
Right.
like, we don't have anything, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, and the way
And
they
then
went. So, I mean, that wasn't even scary, really, but it was like,
I mean, it was scary for a minute, but also
yeah, it was also like, hey, so
Man, that is just so wild. I mean, how old were you at this point in time?
So when we moved on the boat, I was 13, and then so I was basically on the boat from 13 to 17.
Unbelievable.
So when we were, it was incredible. So we were homeschooled. We homeschooled even in Arizona
Okay.
before the boat. So
Got it.
that's another reason that the transition to Costa Rica first and then onto the boat was sort of a no-brainer. It was because we had always homeschooled, and so it was like, just
you guys were used to that type of lifestyle.
yeah, very used to
style.
that. Yeah, take our books with us and learn. And my mom was always about adapting. Like homeschooling was about learning how to live life, more than just outside the books. And
Yep.
so we adapted a lot of different things in our schooling. I'd read a diesel repair book because we had 2 diesel engines.
Hey,
here's
and
your
so my
homeschool.
mom's
What a
like,
great
all right,
skill, what a
here you
great
go."
skill to have, man. Oh my god.
And
Here you
so,
go.
read this.
son,
like
this
Yanmar's,
semester we're going to
all
work
right.
on these motors.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
And then me and my older sister are 14 months apart, so very close. And throughout the boat, on the boat, we were tasked with, we'd pull into a new port, and we would take the dinghy into town. We would find an ATM, get money out, go to the grocery store, sort of get the lay of the land. I mean, just that life experience, I mean, was incredible. I mean, going to this foreign place, nobody speaks English there, finding an ATM, trying to just figure out where the grocery store's at, where we can get petrol, diesel, and and it was just. My mom was like, "That's schooling. Like that is
Every day is an
actual
adventure, huh?
Yeah,
Really,
absolutely.
yeah.
Every
yeah.
day.
Here's a
Yeah.
debit card and a shopping list.
Yeah.
Godspeed.
Yeah.
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 Oh
So
my
it was
gosh.
good. Then they had to figure out, Turkish lira. All right, what's the exchange rate? And all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So
We didn't have cell phones either.
That's man.
Yeah.
I love everything about that, and my wife and I that's our long term goal is how do we build something that can support our lifestyle to be able to go and travel because.
Yeah.
We were very lucky to be able to do so, not to the scale you guys did, but Natalie and I lived in Europe for 3 years.
Yes.
And we lived in Switzerland for 7 months, which was, Zurich is like, it's like, it's beautiful, but it was too easy, right? You walk out the door, you get on a tram, it takes you there, everything's perfect, right?
Right.
And we're like, oh, this is too easy. So next spot we went to was Bulgaria, which was like the complete opposite. And every day was an adventure. Like, learn the language, read an alphabet that is not the Roman alphabet.
Yes.
And like just everything that we had to do every day, like you had this sense of just like, adventure every day. And like we were always excited and happy. And so hopefully we could try to figure
feel
out
like that's
that again.
Yeah.
I feel like that's problem solving, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of what we did on the boat as well was problem solve, from sailing to navigating to when we get to a new port is just solving problems, being creative with creative solutions, which is, to bring it back, like that's what we do now in
Exactly.
real estate, right?
Exactly.
Like we
That's
solve
so cool.
problems.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
we're looking at creative solutions. How do we structure this deal? How do we build out this project in Georgia that's 6 hours away? How do we, on a smaller scale, but in a way it's the same thing.
That's
you
so
know?
wild.
So I feel like it was, so many life skills that you can apply. Even living in Bulgaria, absolutely. You're adapting to your
Yeah.
environment. You're scaling. You're growing. You're moving, and you're used to that.
Absolutely.
Things just get a lot simpler when it's down to the basic things like, all right, I need to get food.
Yeah, survival.
I need to
Yeah,
get
it's survival,
shelter, I
right?
need
Yeah.
to find a place to live.
Right.
And I need to get from here to here. Like,
Yep.
those are just things that we don't even think about
Yeah.
here, And it's like, yeah. So that's part of my wife and I's homeschooling mentality is like, we want to teach you how to learn.
Right.
Like we're not going to teach you this book of facts and that's
Right.
it. And okay, you're 18. Here's your diploma.
Yep.
You're not going to learn anymore.
Yep.
Like life is learning. I'm still learning. I'm
Absolutely.
52 and I'm still learning all kinds of stuff. And
Yeah.
I think that's what it's about. I love to learn new things. So
Yeah.
what's over the horizon? What's over that next mountain? And let's go find out. Let's go figure it out.
It's so interesting to see how that whole experience just kind of connects the dots to what you guys are
Yeah.
doing.
Well,
now.
and I think like I said about the fear muscle, like when
Yeah.
we first moved on the boat, I mean, we were, we moved from this port to this port. I mean, we could see it,
We didn't leave the marina.
We didn't- we
didn't
didn't
leave
leave-
the marina for like a week and a
Yeah,
half.
we didn't leave the
Chris.
marina for
Right.
a week and
Like,
a half,
yeah.
and then
If we leave, we got to go figure out how to anchor.
And then we
don't know how to do that yet.
and then we did like one port, like a 30-minute sail, and
Yeah.
then we did an hour sail, and we, it's that fear muscle of like, never when we started it, we say we're going to cross the ocean for 17 days. Are we
Right.
going to do that? We
Seven-
did-
so
It was 17
days.
days on the
Oh
ocean.
my
17
gosh.
days, no land.
Yeah.
But it was just everything. It was like, hey, let's do this 2-hour sail, this 4-hour sail. It's that fear muscle. And then
Yeah.
as we were sailing, it's like, hey, we did an overnight. We did 2 a night.
Remember, our first overnight sail was going from Turkey to Cyprus, and there's no other way to do it. There's nothing to stop in between. And when you're on a passage, you're sailing 24/7.
Right.
You don't just stop.
Yeah, you don't stop.
Go to
like-
bed.
Yeah.
So you have to take shifts, right? And
Yeah.
you have to be on night watch or whatever. And I don't think I think the four of us, me, you, and
We
Maggie
just pulled
and
an
Mom,
all-nighter.
We just
Nobody
all
slept.
slept. Yeah, we're all like,
It's like, we're doing this together, huh?
yeah, we're all in the cockpit, just like, okay, it's 2 a.m. Like, looking at our little. We had a handheld GPS. We're like, it's supposed to be there in like 14 more hours. So
Yeah.
I guess it's
We're
that
making great
way.
time.
I don't really
yeah,
know.
it's over
Just
there somewhere.
black sky around you. Like, all right,
Oh
let's
my
go.
gosh.
Yeah.
That's so wild. So then how did you guys get back to Wilmington? Was there a plan there or
So when we left Israel, by then Levi was almost 17, and my daughter Maggie was 17, and they were getting to the point where it's like, okay, like, how does this end? Like, we want to get jobs and cars and lives.
Girlfriend,
and,
maybe.
I love my
Please.
sisters, but a girlfriend would be a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, I think we probably need to start making steps towards going back to the U.S. And we knew
Yeah.
we didn't want to go back to Arizona. I grew up in Phoenix, lived in Prescott. It's like, this is our chance to start over. We've already sold everything there except for the storage. So let's look at the East Coast. Knew we couldn't afford California, so wanted to live by the ocean, and basically just narrowed it down to Wilmington, Charleston, or Savannah. And thought, well, let's start with Wilmington and see if we like it. If we don't, we'll try somewhere else. But we got here and loved it. It was everything we wanted. It was not too big, not too small. The guy that got me into construction, Larry in Arizona, who I worked for when I first got in, his wife is from North Carolina, and they actually came and visited us while we were in Israel after Miles was born. And,
how cool.
And we kind of said, yeah, we're thinking North Carolina. He's like, if you're thinking North Carolina, you need to see Wilmington. And we were like, okay, all right. And then my wife and Levi were on a bus in Jerusalem, and this guy gets on the bus just a few days after that, Wilmington UNCW sweatshirt. We're like, okay.
Let's talk to this guy.
It's not going to be weird, but it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so it was like, let's start there and see if we like it. And we just loved it. It's perfect for us.
We sailed the boat right up the Cape Fear River.
Cape Fear, yeah.
Right up the Cape Fear River.
Right up the Cape Fear.
And you guys landed at
Bennett Brothers
Bennett
Marina.
Brothers,
Bennett Brothers.
Yeah. So,
Which is so funny when you guys told me that story, because I know the Bennett family very well and had the chance to work with them, and they're super people. And it's just the story of how this stuff comes together and who you meet along the way and how you get to a place. It's wild, man.
It was crazy. Yeah.
That's
so
so
we
cool.
stayed there for 2 months.
Yep.
And we would walk from there to the library for free Wi-Fi and take the laptop and do that. And then then my wife found a house that was short sale. This was late 2012.
Okay.
And said, all right, let's figure it out.
Yeah, let's
borrowed
get
some
off the boat.
Borrowed some hard money.
Yep.
Got in there with the plan to
Oh my
refi
gosh.
it as soon as we got in there.
Yeah.
Had 6 months to figure it out.
Yep.
Did some quick improvements. It got refied it, and away we go. So,
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah,
And
it was crazy.
what a story. And now, you guys have this Nomad Capital, this business. And, And it's so kind of, bringing it full around and, kind of wrapping it up now. So tell us a little bit more. So this investment fund. So let's say, if I had some money, I would definitely invest with you guys, because I've seen how good you are and how good you guys are at your job. But what type of who can invest in that fund? How do I find that fund? Like, what does it all mean? Like, who are you looking for? Tell us about that.
So we are, there's a lot of legal things that go into putting a fund together. Even the stuff that we're doing now, 506B and C deals. We're only doing 506B.
What does that mean?
So 506B is non-accredited investors, and it's really a friends and family. So we don't generally solicit. We can't, I can't say, hey, I've got this great deal right now.
You can't market it.
Can't market it.
Put it on Facebook.
Can't market it. Hey, invest in this deal.
Yeah.
Here's the address. Here's the returns I'm going to shoot.
Got
to
it.
you.
Okay.
So it's been very grassroots. I mean, our whole investor tribe so far has just been really meeting people, networking, friends of friends, and really just building those relationships. And so the type of fund we're still working out which type of fund we're going to roll out. So it'll either be accredited investors only, which will be like, hey, we can actually market this, and we could say, hey, here's the deals we're doing, or it'll be a portion of it will be non-accredited. So we're still figuring out exactly how and what that fund is going to look like, but it'll all be on our website as soon as we roll it out. There'll probably be a portion of it that'll be for non-accredited investors, which is friends and family, and then
Do you want to say what an accredited investor?
So accredited or non-accredited investor, there's certain criteria that the SEC marks you. Like if you're an accredited investor, your net worth will be, I think it's $1 million, or you have $250,000 in liquid cash, or there's one other metric that I'm not sure of. But basically, like if I give you the documents for you to invest in this deal, you're savvy enough that you should know. You should know about this, right? Like you're a savvy investor.
Whether or not this is a safe invest, you're supposed to be
Got it.
a savvy investor.
Got it.
And a non-accredited investor is typically lower net worth or lower, income per year, that kind of thing. And for those, that's why you have to register with the SECs, because you have to have certain precautions in it for non-accredited
So
investors.
it's a way. So is that a way to kind of protect
It's a way to
the
Yes,
investor
exactly.
It's
a
a
little
way to
bit?
protect the investor. So
Okay.
currently on our deals, we have accredited investors
Yep.
and non-accredited
And non-accredited.
investors. You know, we have a lot of investors that are, you know, their net worth isn't that big, but they're like, hey, we've got this. We're gonna put this in the deal, and then we have, you know, some bigger investors that know what they're doing, and they're like, yeah,
Right.
I know how to read the documents and whatnot. So
So we're trying to figure out how to do that fund and how to structure it and all that. But typically, our deals so far have been $50,000 investor
Okay.
is a minimum for a B share, and then $250,000 is for an A share. And our typical deal size so far has been about $5 million project,
Okay.
and we raise maybe 1.5 to 1.8 million from investors.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
that's kind of some rough numbers of what the deals have looked like so far. And then, you know, that's to get the property purchased, and then construction.
Right.
Which
you guys oversee
which
and
we have,
manage
yes.
and are very well.
So exactly, the company that I started in 2001 still around, Elm Builders.
Yep.
That started when I had 3 kids, Emma, Levi, and Maggie.
Got it. All right.
So that's where that came from.
Yep.
And then so Elm Builders does the construction for Nomad
Right.
Capital, right?
Awesome.
And then once, you know, then we bring in City Storage, which is our storage brand, and then we, you know, start leasing it up. And then once it stabilizes, we pay investors out quarterly, and they get a preferred return, so they get
Yep.
paid before we do.
Okay.
And different metrics for, you know, Class A and Class B shares. It's 6 to 8% is the preferred return.
Got it.
And then either, depending on the deal, whether it's an exit in 5 years, whether we're going to sell it in 5 years or refinance it, or in some cases we've got properties that we plan to hold for 10 years.
Yep.
But at 5 years, typically there'll be some kind of a cash event, either a refinance or a sale.
Yep.
And then we would get the investors, you know, their proceeds. But then in our model, they stay in the deal.
Yep.
So we're going to give you all of your money back and then your return on top of that,
Yep.
but you still stay in the deal.
That's so
And
wild.
so then it creates a stream of passive income for you going forward.
Yep.
Maybe we keep it for 10, 15, 20 years.
I mean, that's, you know, bringing everything back. I mean, that's the reason behind the name, Nomad Capital, right?
Right.
We lived, you know, it's not to be cliche or corny or whatever,
No,
but we
it's-
live like nomads.
You guys truly
You know,
have.
we live
You
like
truly
nomads for
have.
several years, and that's our goal for our investors is, hey, we want to create a tribe of real estate nomads to where they can go, you know, maybe it's not living on a boat for 3.5 years. Maybe it's, hey, let's take a month off and go hike, you know, some mountains in South America,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
let's go live in Thailand for a quarter, or whatever it may
Right.
be.
Ooh, that does sound
You know,
All right, I'm out of here.
you know what? But just creating that right through those streams of, hey, you've
Yeah.
invested in this deal, we've returned all your capital, and now you're getting paid out from it. You know, you do that a few times, and all of a sudden, you know, you can start to take off time, or you can start to do the things you want to do. So that's the reason behind the name Nomad Capital is we want to create those. We want to create nomads,
Yeah.
real estate nomads.
Yeah.
So
Whatever that, you know, nomadic is pretty broad, but whatever that means to you, you know, if it means I want to live in an RV and travel around the U.S. and check in every few months, or
Yep.
go abroad, or whatever. So, or just, you know, kind of have your time back, your time and your freedom. We feel like that's kind of what a
You know,
nomad is.
in our last minute here, that's, you know, that was something that I was thinking about this morning, is that you guys, I feel like you put a higher priority on time as the ultimate currency as opposed to money, right? Because money comes and goes.
Right.
But you only have so much time. And I just wanted to make sure I got that
Yes,
in there.
yeah, yeah,
I just wanted
yeah.
to
And
make
that-
sure I
that-
got
that's-
that in there
that's
before,
perfect because,
before we concluded. So.
There was a Mark Twain quote, and my wife and I had these chats before the boat and all that. It was like, for me, the tipping point where people were like, how did you, you know, actually pull the trigger on that? And
Yeah.
it was like, it finally came to a point where it was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it.
Yeah.
And I think the Mark Twain quote, I'm going to butcher it up, but it was like, you'll regret more the things in 20 years, the things you didn't do than the things you did do.
Yep.
So throw off the bow lines, you know, set sail, basically.
Yeah.
It's a crazy quote. It
That's
was like,
so wild.
And I found it after we'd already decided to do it,
after
but I'm
you guys-
like, whoa.
Whoa, this is, yeah.
Yeah, whoa.
Oh
it's
my
weird.
gosh.
But yeah, so it was really cool, and I think that's what it came for, is like time. Like, this is it. Like, our kids are only young once.
Yep.
Like, there's a narrow window here, and if we don't take it, we're going to regret it.
Yep.
And there's not a single day that I wouldn't do it again in a heartbeat.
Awesome.
It was fantastic. So
Well, what a story, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. It's really been a pleasure. Tell us where we can find you if I was interested in, investing with you guys or learning more about your business model. Where do I find you? How do I get in touch with you?
nomadcapital.us is our website.
All right.
And we don't have a huge social media presence right now on any platform, but we're building that out. Again, we've just bootstrapped everything from the ground up.
Organic, man. Organic growth. I love it.
Nomadcapital.us is
Cool.
our website, and our phone numbers and emails are all in there. And or we're in Wilmington, North Carolina. If anybody listening
pop
is
by the
here,
office.
Yeah,
pop by the
that's
office.
right.
Have a
Grab a beer.
Yep.
Yeah, they have beer on tap. They got great coffee and everything. So check them out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was our first recorded session, our first episode, and couldn't have picked two better guys to do it with. Thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next show.